Hello and welcome to Edinburgh, and I'm here to visit one very special painting here at the National Galleries of Scotland.
The Monarch of the Glen by Sir Edwin Landseer is one of the most recognisable paintings of the Victorian era. It is a masterpiece of the Romantic period of landscape painting and embodies Scotland's national identity. And I've got company. I'll be joined by legendary Scottish composer Sir James MacMillan to explore the themes and symbolism behind this painting and what it can tell us about our faith.
I think beauty is a window onto the mind of God. You find strangely doors and windows are opening onto something, well, I would say sacred.
It is not a strictly religious or Christian painting, but like a lot of art does, it takes us away from this material world and, for me, into the divine realm. I'm very much looking forward to see the painting, and I hope you are too.
When it comes to cities that celebrate the arts, there's none quite like Edinburgh. For centuries, it's been a destination for lovers of architecture, museums, galleries, and artists themselves, home to one of the largest global gatherings of performers at its annual festival, the Edinburgh Fringe.
Hi James, how are you?
Very well, thank you, and welcome to Scotland.
Today I'm joined by one Scottish artist, Sir James MacMillan, one of Britain's most renowned composers and conductors. His works have been heard on not only the greatest classical stages around the world, but also in sacred spaces in our churches and in daily devotion in mass settings. He is also a practicing Catholic and promoter of the Scottish arts.
A painting you're probably very familiar with, Sir Edwin Landseer's Monarch of the Glen.
This is the first time I've seen it in real life, actually, and it's a stunning moment, really, the majesty and grandeur of it. It's an iconic Scottish image.
Yes, an image that's been very widely used.
I think the whisky industry especially have reason to be thankful to the artist for this.
What I always like to do when looking at paintings is first of all look at the composition. The first thing we notice are the three levels of the landscape. So there's the foreground where we see the header in the foreground, we have the mist hanging in the background, and then the middle ground is taken up by this majestic, regal stag that is staring into the distance. Also, the other thing, composition-wise, if I was to draw a line exactly in the middle of the painting, a vertical line, then you will see that the stag is slightly sort of off-center. Artists do that to add a certain dynamism to their paintings. Because if it was perfectly placed in the middle, it gives maybe a more serene and static look. Off-center always creates a more dramatic effect. So when you look at this painting, how does it speak to you?
As a composer, I see analogies in this here, and the fact that, as you say, Father, he must have planned this well in advance. And that's similar to the way that a composer goes about planning a piece of composition. You want to make the music as spontaneous and emotional as possible, but sometimes that has to be planned, sometimes years in advance, certainly months and weeks. And for him to have done this, probably in the open air, is quite astonishing. Did he actually compose this, create this at an easel in the Scottish countryside?
No, well, it's interesting. So this was painted in 1851. And we know that in the early 40s, so about 10 years before he painted this, he had a severe mental breakdown. And that is a time that he retreated a lot into the Scottish Highlands with just a paper pad and a pencil, and he drew all these magnificent landscapes. And so this would have been painted in his studio, but based on these open-air drawings that he made. And one of the reasons why we can tell that it was painted in his studio is that everything has been embellished. The fur of the stag is almost perfect. When you look at the face as well, it's almost a human face. The lips of the stag are perfectly closed, like how we would close our mouths, but you will never see a stag with this kind of sort of facial expression. And then I think for me, what is really powerful in this painting is this gaze that the stag has into sort of the infinite. The stag is there, yes, at this very moment in time in the Highlands, but it's looking towards the infinite. And I think that somehow reflects his mental struggles. It's almost like a self-portrait of himself, where he retreats to the highlands and gazing into the future. What is next to come for my art?
Landseer's work is deeply rooted in the Romantic period. Between 1800 and the 1860s, artists like Landseer and his contemporaries sought inspiration from the natural world, responding to the rapid changes brought on by the Industrial Revolution. Artists sought to escape the mechanical advancements by turning to nature. Through their art, they invited viewers to look beyond the material world with its innovative industries and machinery, to find meaning in beauty, emotion, and faith.
So the Monarch of the Glen, strictly speaking, is not a Christian painting. Yet, when I read Psalm 42, as a deer longs for running streams, so longs my soul for you, O Lord, that's always the image that comes to mind. When we look at art, it's very much looking through the lens of our Christian faith at these types of paintings. And I think especially landscapes lend themselves so beautifully as a window into the divine. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I do. I think beauty is a window onto the mind of God, and it doesn't matter if it's sacred beauty or secular beauty, natural beauty, human beauty, spiritual beauty. It's a concept that is deeply connected with the other great attributes, truth and goodness, and it's almost as if beauty is the first step. Yeah. So if you can engage with beauty in paintings like this, you find strangely doors and windows are opening onto something, well, I would say sacred. Yes. And there's a search for the sacred in art, which is mysterious but deeply embedded, even in apparently non-religious presentations.
And does the natural world inspire and nourish your own work?
It certainly does, and I'm kind of surprised by that in a way, because artists have lived through a period in history, both in music and the visual arts, where the natural world has been downplayed as an important factor, an important inspiration. It was regarded as old-fashioned or too romantic, but we're beginning to reassess our relationship with so many things. And now that I live in the countryside, I'm surrounded by these kind of images. I see roe deer, not the Monarch of the Glen every day, but there's little roe deer in the fields and hills round about where I live, and it's always a delight. There's something deep in the heart that is touched as soon as you encounter something like that. It might not be as dramatic as the Monarch of the Glen, but it's in those unexpected encounters, strangely, is where the human beings can encounter the numinous, and that's what the bread and butter of what the artistic search is all about.
When we gaze upon nature or art that depicts nature, such as some of the landscapes we looked at, or even painting of the intricate veins of a leaf, or the majestic stag set in a landscape, all these portray the majesty of nature, and therefore they make us tap into the divine hand that created it all. Art that captures the splendor of nature does much more than merely represent or imitate nature. It actually becomes a window into the divine. And one theologian who really understood this so well in the 20th century is Hans Urs von Balthasar.
Hans Urs von Balthasar was a Swiss 20th century theologian and Catholic priest. He believed that beauty is one of the main paths through which we can encounter God. In his seminal work, The Glory of the Lord, A Theological Aesthetics, he argued that through truth, goodness, and beauty, God reveals himself. For Balthasar, great art, whether a landscape painting or more overt Christian art, great art acts as a window to the divine, reflecting God's glory and drawing us deeper into the mystery of the Creator. And at the heart of Balthasar's theology is the belief that Christ is the ultimate beauty. Therefore, beauty, whether in painting, poetry, or music, offers this timeless connection to the divine.
I think there's a deep human urge to seek out beauty, and we need it. We need it more than ever. And perhaps in the Christian tradition, we've overlooked or downplayed the role of beauty. We don't talk about it as much as perhaps we should. We talk about those two other great attributes, truth and goodness. But what about beauty? Yes. They can't exist without each other. And perhaps, this isn't a criticism of the clergy, Father, but I'd love to hear more sermons about beauty.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are many clergy out there who have great ideas that could illuminate that human search, that human desire for beauty.
James, thank you so much for having us here in your home country of Scotland.
You're very welcome, Father. Haste you back, as we say in these books.
Yes, thank you. I hope you enjoyed meeting Sir James MacMillan and looking at this magnificent painting, The Monarch of the Glen. Stay tuned for more content coming this year, so please subscribe.
And if you haven't already, head over to www.christian.art and subscribe for free to receive our daily email, where I pair the gospel reading of the day with a work of art and write a short reflection, exploring beauty to grow closer to God. Be part of our community and subscribe, or simply download the app. Thank you.